You leave the inn at first light, sent off with little more than the innkeeper's sleepy grimace. The clear morning air whips your face. It's a perfect day to push on with your search and to run a few errands. You scan the map you marked up the night before. There's still time to reach your aim. You climb steep back streets and wander the markets, taking the chance to make a few small trades. You quickly part with your old cloak and old dagger. At the price the trader sticks you with, you don't flinch. They served you well, but you've found better. The proceeds hardly matter. You also pick up a few little necessities, matches, salt, thread to mend your boots. But what really draws you is what the market might offer in weapons. In places like this, if you know how to move, you find bargains and wares with special powers. Your eye falls on a small shop tucked into a hard-to-spot bend of the street. Inside, a jumble of objects spills across dusty shelves, blunted weapons, scratched cuirasses, hats and garments out of fashion and faded with use. "Does the selection please you?" says a voice behind you. You turn to what you take for the shopkeeper, a short, bold man hunched over the counter, busily polishing an old boot. "Listen," you say, "I'm looking for something a little special, if you take my meaning." He neither looks up nor stops rubbing. "All my special merchandise select personally, items of great distinction, naturally, at the right price." You grab him by the collar. "I'm not in the mood to waste time. In my pocket is a gold coin and a sharp knife. Which of the two you get is up to you. I want particular things, special things." "What's your answer, old man?" The shopkeeper goes rigid, eyes darting. Anxious grimaces and forced smiles chase each other across his face, as though he's bargaining with himself. One last glance at the keen dagger at your hip settles him. "Certainly not from me. There's the death penalty for that kind of trade, but I've heard of a place nearby, run by half-brigands. I don't meddle with them." Get to the point, you press, tightening your grip. Past the fountain, among the shops, there's a little stair down to a basement. Knock 3 times, and you step into a hidden place where there's always a lot of coming and going. Beyond that, I can't say. You let go of his collar and toss in the coin. He snatches it from the air, and with that, your interest in him ends. At the place he indicated, there's another shop, worse than the one you left. Inside, no one's watching. You move slowly among battered goods, one hand to your dagger. The crooked merchant may have led you into a trap. But at last, in a dim corner, you find what he described, a narrow, steep stair, a few steps down, to a closed wooden door. You knock 3 times. No answer. Your hand stays on the dagger, ready if there's an ambush. You knock again and wait. This time the door opens. A portly man greets you, turbaned and dressed in white, flowing robes. Plumes nod from his headgear. His face is made up to accentuate his features, almost like a showman. His smile is outsized, all white teeth and rouged cheeks. He doesn't speak. With a half bow and a sweep of the hand, he invites you in. You take the last step and cross the threshold. The door closes behind you. You find yourself in a room lit by a watery glow, somewhere between green and orange, its source unclear. Great jars ring the walls, breathing out dense smoke. Heavy drapes hang all around. In the center, a broad tablecloth in red velvet. Your practiced eye notes how often the man glances at the curtains, perfect places to hide others, brigands or merely bodyguards, you think. He bows again, deeper. In that brief dip, his gaze snaps over you, your coin sack, every part of you, a swift frisk by sight to weigh the customer he's dealing with. He addresses you in a smooth, rounded salesman's voice. "My humble emporium is at your disposal, good traveler. Here no names are given, no questions asked. I shall do my utmost to fulfill any request within my means." You draw your daggers. "I'd like to know more. Can you help me?" "Certainly," he says, eyes already on the blades. "I can provide every manner of information on the properties of objects, weapons, equipment, their histories, and any powers they might possess. For a modest fee, of course. Let me see." You lay the two daggers on the velvet, identical save for the faint light they emit. He studies them closely. He weighs and turns them, examining the steel, the decorations, the shape. He slips behind a curtain and returns with a tier of heavy tomes, which he leafs through for a good long while, leaving you to stare, bored, at those strange breathing jars. "Excellent weapons, sir," he concludes, lifting his eyes from the books. "You have exquisite taste. These are almost certainly hunting daggers, commissioned centuries ago by a dynasty of rulers whose name is now lost. If I'm right, your blades are steeped in a mild magic that keeps them proof against wear and keen as sin." But that isn't all. He drops his gaze and scans more pages. It's told that such a sovereign bound a spirit and, by trickery, forced it to forge arms that would make it invincible. In revenge, the spirit gave the weapons a will of their own, so they might judge their bearer and bring misfortune to any unworthy hand. The sovereign, considering himself very worthy indeed, paraded them at once. He died 2 weeks later, torn apart by his own hunting hounds. After a string of ill-starred incidents, the weapons gained a bad name and were forgotten, only to reappear here with you today. And since you still have both arms, I suppose the daggers consider you worthy. He ends with a smirk, pleased with his little joke. You take the daggers back, fascinated but not wholly convinced by the tale. "And this, what can you tell me?" You hold out the clear file that spills light at your command. "Ah," he says, without consulting his books, "a truly fine and rare object, a luminiferous file that traps a spark of a dragon's breath, and by virtue of it, can produce light without end. The enchantment bound to it lets the fortunate owner command that light at will. But take care," he adds, grave. "If the file were to break, the fiery breath, imprisoned for centuries and finally freed, would char everything around to cinders in an instant." His voice drops to a whisper. "A dangerous piece. If you wish to part with it, I can offer a good price." "No, I'm keeping it," you cut him off. Of course, he replies with a courteous bow. "Now tell me about this." You hand him the talisman that gave you last night's vision, now snapped in two. He turns it in his hands. A talisman that induces hypnotic visions. Not common in the open, but often used by secret orders to commune over great distances. To use it, one must know its spell. This one was misused, forced, or destroyed by its maker. Once broken, it's only a stone again. Can you tell me whose it is? Alas, no. And even if I could, I would not. As you surely understand, exposing another's secrets is bad for one's reputation. You don't push it. Your thoughts stray to the white stone pendant, the object that set your recent adventures in motion and nearly killed you in the catacombs. You hesitate, showing it is too risky, and this merchant seems disinclined to part with that sort of secret. His gaze drops to your cloak. Without waiting for you to ask, he speaks. "If I may, sir, since you're after information, perhaps you'd like to hear about your cloak." "Is it special?" you ask. "If you'll allow," he says, passing the fabric between his fingers. "I've seen few of this make, 2, perhaps 3 in my life. Mind you, what I'm about to say is more legend than fact, but a discerning man like you knows how to sift truth from tale. Gar. You will have noticed its peculiar knack for hiding you in shadow, more than any ordinary cloak. They say these garments come from the hill folk, fey spirits, master tailors and craftsmen, who weave not wool and silk, but the friendly essences of nature itself, wood, leaf, rock, and water. The legends go further. The hill folks' cloaks let mere mortals step into enchanted places. But there's a danger. Show your face even once, and the spell breaks, leaving the poor soul trapped forever in that realm, at the mercy of angered spirits. A rare piece. The hill folk, they say, are jealous of their creations. They give them to no one. You mull it over. You can't say why. but your mind flashes to the ethereal figure you glimpsed your first night in the city during the ambush. A shape moving unnaturally, dissolving into shadow like smoke in water. And still, you're not convinced. I find that hard to believe, you reply. It's certainly a fine cloak, but it doesn't make me invisible. You are absolutely right, he answers with his usual smile. Though fine in quality and peculiar in cut, it is surely nothing but an ordinary cloak. What I told you is a tavern tale for credulous peasants. If you should decide to part with it, I could offer a fair price. I'd pay what a new cloak costs. What do you say? I'm not selling, only buying. You shut him down. Show me what you have. Weapons, bolts, boots, braces, things that protect me properly without weighing me down or getting in my way. Certainly, he says, already fluttering his hands for the servants. In little time the table is crowded with all sorts of items. We carry a broad stock of excellent kit for discerning adventurers. Here we have helms not only sturdy but handsome, set with precious stones, lotions and unguents to soothe fatigue, weapons that belong to great knights. You weigh what would serve you best. Your enemies are battle-hardened, and others may appear. Every edge counts, but you have to choose with care. Nothing on the table quite convinces you. Do you have ways to enchant weapons, or make them deadlier? Ah, indeed, he says, already signaling. More servants appear from behind the drapes bearing containers large and small, in the most varied shapes. Inside, powders and liquids with shifting colors. Allow me to present a selection of potent venoms, he says, indicating a tray of phials. A blade touched with these becomes enchanted, its cut poisons the victim, death all but certain. Being first-rate magic, the effect does not decay with time. The weapon will retain its properties until the enchantment is dispelled, or the blade reforged. And that? You point to a smaller vessel the servants handle with extreme care. An excellent eye, sir. One of the most powerful acid drafts, capable of burning flesh, and not just metal but even stone. The phial itself is magically reinforced against the substance's destructive power. However, he warns, I advise against applying it to your blades. The metal would be swiftly corrupted. You're tempted anyway. If, as you believe, the blade is impervious to damage, it will hold. At worst, you sacrifice a good dagger. I'll proceed anyway, you say. As you wish, sir, he replies, but do not forget my warning. They clear space on the table. The small phial is set carefully inside a large bronze basin, and the men step back. You must spread the substance along the blade so it can take on the magical properties. And beware the vapors, he cautions, retreating another pace. You choose the red glowing dagger, it seems the better fit, at least by color. You ease the stopper free. A biting smell, peppery, metallic, floods your nose. Slowly, you pour the phial over the steel. The liquid throws up a dense vapor before pooling at the bottom of the basin. A breath of it hits your face just before you can turn away. Your skin burns. The scent, pepper and bronze, sets your head spinning. Gritting through it, you work the substance along the entire edge, one side, then the other. The blade flares with a hard red light. It is red hot. The heat rips the grip from your fingers. The weapon clatters to the floor in a cloud of acid fumes. Soon, it's done. The smoke thins. A grey haze hangs in the room, stinging the eyes. The blade lies there on the ground, cool to the touch again. You turn it over. It seems whole and as sharp as before. With a light tap, you score the bronze basin, already eaten away by the acid. The groove smoulders and widens, splitting the metal, leaving back scars. The merchant applauds. Bravo! I knew it would work. A great success. You decide to steep the other dagger, the blue-lit one, in the venoms. It feels the right pairing and gives you more strategic variety. At their touch, the blade goes cold as ice, and its glow seems to take the faintest green cast. Then, again, everything is as it was. Another excellent choice, sir. One can tell you know your craft, the merchant pairs. With weapons so exceptional, you're a great warrior. And what better suits a warrior of your stature than a cuirass fit for a king? I've no interest in armor. It would hinder me. Ah, he says, but I'm sure I have something to your taste. At his clap, 2 more servants thump a heavy trunk onto the floor. As you wonder how many helpers this man commands, he rummages past leather jerkins and rings of mail, and at last produces a leather corselet. This, he says, is light and supple, you see. It bears no enchantments, yet its quality is such that it may as well. A one-of-a-kind piece, commissioned by a prince of vast wealth. They say the craftsman took 30 years to make it. Once the last stitch was set, the craftsman died of exhaustion and the prince of old age. But if you ask me, it was worth it. At first glance it looks like a normal corselet, not even particularly ornate. But closer in you see an infinity of intricate interlacings, floral designs with minuscule detail, visible only against the light, so fine you doubt even a master could go so far. To the touch, it's soft and flexible, almost like wool. The workmanship is certainly exceptional, you say, still admiring it. But I doubt it would protect me properly. Ah, sighs the merchant. At a clap, yet another servant steps forward. He fastens the corselet and stands at attention. Sir, the merchant goes on, smiling, to prove the quality of this remarkable armor, I invite you to give our volunteer a punch, or even a kick. You won't be disappointed. I'd wear it myself, but as you can see, it's not my size. Without ceremony, you drive a kick into the poor man's liver. To your surprise, the blow, well angled and struck with good force, has almost no effect. The servant doesn't flinch. Your shin stops as if you'd hit a sack of flour. See, he says, isn't it an exceptional corselet? I'll grant you that, you answer, impressed, satisfied with your purchases, and with your purse much lighter, you take your leave. You leave the merchant behind with his self-satisfied smile and his army of servants already busy resetting the scene. Now you feel readier for what awaits. Friend or foe, they'll be forced to fear you.